for optimizing supply chain operations, even in challenging environment. Alvin, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Winnie, and thank you to the UNISA team, and welcome to all the attendees. I'm just going to begin sharing, and once I start sharing, I will try to minimize the video so that everybody can save their bandwidth. So welcome, and hopefully I can make this as exciting and informative for everybody, um, and really delve into how do we balance technology and talent. I think one cannot work without the other, and try to share some skills or focus areas for success in artificial intelligence and how it can enhance the supply chain. So to begin, sorry, I just want to navigate. What I'm going to take you through is a brief background of who I am, try and stay within the timeline. Also touch on, what is the difference between what we see as AI and generative AI, how the history and future evolution of AI in supply chain has progressed, and what we can look out for, and basically the evolution of the supply chain profession. And then lastly, question and answers, which I will take through the chat and after all speakers have had their chance. So basically, who I am. At first, I'm a father, I'm a husband, and I'm generally an easygoing person. What I love doing when I'm not working is gaming, writing, do it yourself, break and fix things, travel and sport. I've been in supply chain almost from the onset of my career. I had a brief stint post engineering and got into supply chain. I've been exposed to various industries, various levels of growth, really beginning, at the base of pyramid, working in warehousing and production, and then evolving my career into planning, sales and operations planning, and the largest segment being in sourcing. And sourcing, for those that want me to expand on it, it's a mix of procurement and manufacturing. So where I find myself today in mining is at the forefront of localization. I'm really spending time with SMMEs, ESD, and preferential procurement, trying to support the mining charter. I do have education in engineering and business management, and I would say a hands-on education in supply chain. And my external interest is really promoting education within supply chain, and I serve on UNISA's advisory board, Schwane University of Technology, and Harvard Business Review, where I support publications. Apart from work, I also do global network consulting for Boston Consulting Group and McKinsey on ad hoc projects. And you will see that I've worked across the industry. I'm proud of the companies I've worked for, and I still maintain strong network with all the companies I've worked with, colleagues, and really, working on the long-term networking of the supply chain. So jumping straight into AI versus generative AI. And I think, with the evolution of so many applications and so many systems that have come into the supply chain space, I think it's important for everyone to have a basis, because in every study, in every skill that's learned in supply chain, it's impossible to progress without technology um, being married to it. So obviously, I'm not going to go into every definition, but I think what I would like focus on for those that are really delving into the supply chain careers, and those entering the workforce and those in the workforce, is having an appreciation for what is the difference of artificial intelligence and generative AI. I think a lot of people have just seen Copilot, Gemini, and Claude, and people assume that this is AI. I think people need to understand that this is a capability of AI, but it's not everything AI. And I think, just to touch on key things that new entrants into the marketplace should know is firstly defining, what is AI. And obviously AI itself is a broad field of computer science. It really delves into creating and developing systems and replicating tasks that require human intelligence. So, where a human being can teach or write a process, artificial intelligence can replicate it. So the human behind the intelligence is absolutely critical. Um, at no point should it be assumed that we do not need humans. We just need to obviously adapt to technology. Generative AI is basically the linguistic ability of artificial intelligence to create content and to broaden information. So the first thing that I was taught when using generative AI is check the information that is generated. Use the information to help you with your research, to help you understand what you're doing, but make sure that you delve into the actual content and test the integrity of the content. The last thing you want to do is in a research is use research that is not factual. So I would really, encourage that the definition between artificial intelligence as a broad segment and generative AI be expanded on. And then towards the right of the screen, you'll see some brand names that are stolen. And these are typically some of the systems that I've worked with. I would say the standout systems I've worked with in my career. SAP as the leading ERP, and I've really watched out from SAP R3 to where SAP HANA is today, how artificial intelligence has assisted the supply chain in making better decisions, in planning long term, providing scenarios, and where the supply chain function has evolved from just a support function to quite a decision making critical function within business. When I started in supply chain 18 years ago, the term supply chain did not really exist. It became a buzzword later on. But today's supply chain is really the decision support part of business. Netstock, for example, is an inventory tool that I've been using for the last few years that helps optimize. Blue Yonder is actually tied in with what you call next generation logistics, and something that is really revolutionizing the warehouse management space. And then there's just some other ERP brands and logistics tools that I've listed. So I would really encourage those that are on the call and those that really have a knack for systems to really understand that there's quite a bit of systems out there. And as your career evolves, you will be part of the decision making teams that will choose tools. So having a basis of understanding what they offer is quite critical. And then to spend a little time on where AI has impacted and where AI is going in the supply chain. I think the reality is that AI has always been in supply chain. From the inception of the early 50s to 70s, when logistics and inventory were really growing functions within business, it was very early on that computer scientists started delving into how can we use computer technology to drive logistics and inventory. Moving into the 80s and 90s, there was much more focus on inventory management and developing ERPs to support processes where manual intervention were needed. Moving to the 2000s, I think this was where algorithms, heuristic models, and supply chain models in ERP became prominent. So it was not just inventory anymore; it was production planning and control. It was warehouse management. It was forecasting, demand planning, supply planning. And towards the 2010s, which was more into the time when my career started taking off, I had worked at companies like Shell and Samsung, and automated guide vehicles were used quite prominently in warehousing, and this was something new to me. Watching, robotics carry products across manufacturing, but even there, I had realized early on that the human element was critical because we needed people who knew supply chain and people who knew robotics to make this technology work. So moving on to the early 2020s, and I would say just around the turn of the 20s, more of the cognitive and autonomous supply chain. So, really integrating ERPs together with supply chain tools and robotics. And where do we see ourselves going? I would say it's just a 2.0 of further cognitive and autonomous decision support. So really, where does supply chain come in to help businesses make decision, how to take things forward, and how to improve organization? So really, supply chain being a total value add and totally moving away from being a traditional support function. Um, and then moving on from this, where do we see the supply chain professions going? So beside the traditional roles in supply chain, which are operations management, supply chain management, purchasing people, some of the skills that will be required, and this will become an evolution of some of the current graduates and people in supply chain and adding capabilities. So supply chain strategy and having people with artificial intelligence skills, these are going to be key roles that are needed in business. And in the current organization I'm in, these are some of the roles that exist globally. And later on, moving into Africa and the emerging markets. So machine learning, strategic planning, data analytics. So these are the skills that will be needed. Very much focus on people with supply chain and engineering abilities, uh, providing more automation tools, more programming and optimization. Data science is already a big function that exists today, already a huge demand, but I would say enhancing and taking the functions further. Data visualization, machine learning, statistic modeling, these will be some of the skills required, and blockchain and IoT. I think that in terms of solutions architect, there will be a much more need for people with supply chain capabilities working together with ERP and software companies to provide platforms. And I think cybersecurity, a huge focus, because protecting your data and your supply chain, that's some of the new battles and wars that we are fighting with today. And then, yeah, there was quite a, I would say, a crash course in supply chain and AI. And I'm going to stop sharing and make a quick introduction to my colleague, Tony Mthethwa. So Tony, I will hand over the stage to you. And I know Tony is quite the guru in terms of artificial intelligence, and I would say much more development experience than I have. And the floor is yours, Tony. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much for those kind words. I will also put my face on here. Sanbonan, Tumelang, Abusheni, welcome, Khiyamora. Well, it's more afternoon right now. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and wanted to actually say well done to each one of you for actually making the time and investing in yourselves in such a way. I've been following the series, and there have been such amazing speakers and such amazing nuggets that have come through from the previous two series. So well done for continuing that for the students that are on the call today. I'm just going to switch this off for bandwidth. Share my screen. Provide screen. Let me know once it's on there.
We can see it. Thanks, Tony.
Excellent. So my brief today is really, and well done for just taking through my previous speaker, the what is AI and where AI has come from. I didn't really want to touch on that today. That can be another talk, but really focusing on more the skills, what you as either new entrants into the workplace or as ready practitioners in the workplace, what are the skills, what are the development areas for you as you come into this era of AI, as it were? But before we go into that, and before we talk about me, I want to really keep things interactive and ask you a few questions. I want to understand who we have today. So I have these three questions. There's a poll that Alicia is going to be able to run. Question number one, if you are able to just answer on the poll there. How many of you have used any form of AI tools in this past week? This is going to be an interesting one. There's some stats that suggest how often we are all currently using AI. We'd like to understand what the audience here, today's stats would say. Alicia, you'll let me know.
Yes, I think we have 43 responses, and there's 105 people in the session. So perhaps we can give 2 more minutes, and then or
Okay.
30 seconds, and then I'll launch the second one.
Sure. I should have actually hidden my second and third question so I didn't give it away. what's coming up. Are you going to give all the results all in one time, or we can just go through each one there, Alicia?
You can say what you prefer. Would you like me to first view, show the results of the previous one?
Yes. Just wanted to see the first question. So how many, just in terms of numbers, I am a data guy after all, so just wanting to understand, what are the stats? How many people have used any form of AI in the past week? What do we have as a percentage on that?
Just give me 1 second.
Excellent.
Okay, perhaps I'll do it with the next one if you don't mind.
Okay, no problem. And then in terms of those applications where you are currently, how you're currently using, where you've used AI, what applications and in which area of life have you been using AI for? Are we using it in entertainment, the generative AI that has just been spoken about, which is the more democratized version of it? Are we using it in work, doing some form of analysis, demand planning, predictive analytics, your education, R&D? Are you using LLMs, large language models, in any way? Which other area are you using AI today? And then lastly, once you have that one come through, again, to help in the understanding of the level of knowledge or usage of AI, what, if any, were the challenges you faced when using AI? Was there any lack of knowledge, got stuck somewhere, or none? You cruised through because you just used Copilot or ChatGPT. There's somewhere you are wanting to do a lot more complex things and you have to start paying because of high costs, or data quality issues. Sometimes the answer that comes back is not quite the right one. Some of these models are still developing. Was it trying to integrate it into your existing systems? What were those challenges? Or any other challenges, maybe? I am definitely intrigued to see what the data will tell us about the audience today.
Okay, Tony, can I close this? I see that the results are in the meeting chat. So I think people will be able to still update their responses as they go.
Okay, so if I'm looking in the chat now, go back up. So how many people? Oh, sorry, how many people? 75% said yes. Wow, you guys are definitely bucking the industry stats. The industry stats say currently only 22% of people are using AI in any shape or form globally right now. So this is definitely a lot higher than that. That's positive. And in terms of what are the applications are using it for, yes, given the audience, it's no surprise 38% are using for education, 28% for work. I'm glad to see there's some large language models being used there, and there's some other areas as well. So definitely a wider usage of the technology. Challenges, lack of knowledge. Great. Something we can hopefully address then in the next 12 minutes or so. Brilliant. Well, thanks for indulging me in that. I think based on the results of those polls, you definitely are in the right place, and I can definitely learn a lot from those stats as well in my day-to-day work. So what I do as in just moving us forward, those are great introduction given earlier. Just my career journey thus far. So working backwards, currently at Microsoft, and what I do on a day-to-day basis as the principal data and AI specialist, focusing in mining, energy, and manufacturing, is really walking the factory floors, the process plants, and being able to, on a fit-for-purpose basis, bring digitization to those companies, to those personas that are currently have challenges of operational efficiencies. So really being able to, on a persona-based level, where you have a reliability engineer needing to see what is the uptime of this machine, bringing AI into that fore to help give him that instant minute-to-minute data on this machine, bringing all the other OEM type manuals together so that you interact with ChatGPT, he's able to get all that information and answer some questions on a day-to-day basis. So that's just an example of what I do currently today. In the past 24 odd years of working, I've been fortunate enough to be involved in retail, and just a couple of lessons that I've learned really in these different industries that I've worked in. And I guess in retail was really building robust relationships. Now, in this sector, I was managing and leading franchise stores and just understood the importance of establishing strong client relationships to help you drive success. And when it came to the technology industry, really in my first time working at SAS is where I cut my teeth in data and analytics and really fell in love with data and the power that it has in driving business results. There, the adaptability and innovation in working with various technologies and working with various companies and industries to help them realize their data advantage, and that data being the true goal for them. And telecoms was really, I learned a lot around the strategic partnerships. You know, the telcos themselves are wanting to move from being telcos into techcos. And so with that, they really need to partner with various other businesses and industries in order to realize their own goals. And so understanding that and being a strategic partner to them as well was a lesson that I picked up in that area. And then when I look at the manufacturing space, I was fortunate enough in my career to have been in a startup in manufacturing where we manufactured solar geysers back in the day. And in that, really understanding the market analysis and the strategy around taking a product from zero in your factory floor through to nationwide and the distribution thereof, as well as regionally as well. So market analysis, competitor activities, and just really developing effective sales as well, skills in that area. And then finally, in terms of mining, where I spent recently, I also had a stint in supply chain itself, working for a supply chain technology integrator, where really got to understand the nuts and bolts and not just the typical procure to pay that people may sometimes put you professionals in a peg, but really the broadness of all the different functions that come with being a supply chain professional. And so again, they're enabling those functions with technologies that enable to digitize the very manual processes within the supply chain sector. And I co-founded a business, as was alluded to earlier, in the mining space, where I had the pain and the pleasure of creating and developing a technology to monitor real-time production of copper and other base metals. And therein also was a lot of lessons learned, and in there showcasing the importance again of leveraging technology as an enabler to digitize very traditional and archaic processes and bringing those into the 21st century by creating innovative and tangible solutions as well. So that's just briefly where I've been in terms of industry. I just want to play a short 1-minute video that just kind of encompasses AI today and the applications for it.
Sorry, Tony, there's no sound on your video on our side.
Oh, my apologies, Sorry, let me try and share that humblest apologies. Let me share that with, stop sharing and reshare with sound. We're back.
1 year ago, at the dawn of a new age, we took the first bold step into a world of unlimited possibilities.
We're going to get to think about how we use our imagination to solve some of the biggest problems in the world.
It allows for the patient and doctor to be a patient and a doctor, like it used to be.
With AI as your co-pilot, you are supercharging innovation.
It's like reading my mind. It's magic.
You built new solutions and inspired us to imagine more.
In our journey of generative AI, we have over 700 use cases across all divisions and functions, so we really see a big impact.
Copilot makes day-to-day life easier, so you can spend your time thinking how I want to improve the experience for people learning a language.
This technology has the potential to completely reimagine the way every single student learns in the world.
It enables our people to get back to what they're brilliant at.
You redefined the art of collaboration.
I've been using Copilot on exciting problems that are having real impacts in people's lives.
I can just go home and be like, yeah, I did that. I'm a superhuman. I've done something amazing.
This is the age of co-pilots.
So a bit of a plug there for my organization, but really what I wanted to bring across there was that AI is everywhere in your world, in what you are doing. You can really encompass it in everything. And then in addressing the elephant in the room, people always ask me, will AI take my job? Will it take other people's jobs? And quite frankly, this statement just helps ease everyone's fears. AI will not replace you, but people using AI in their jobs could replace you. And that's the competitive advantage. And that's the human element that we were talking about earlier that my colleague referred to, that AI still remains a tool that is needing instruction from human beings. And my colleague now in these days, Trevor Noah, who's the Chief Questions Officer at Microsoft, he puts it best in a recent interview at one of the tech summit when he was asked, look, you're in entertainment. We've seen what's happened in the entertainment industry, whether it's music, whether it's even comedy, people can create their own. Are you afraid that AI will, replace you in terms of some of your income? And he says, well, actually, the main question we need to be asked is, how does AI actually redefine what humans need or what we want to do for work? For him, that's the broader question we need to be asking. In other words, AI as an innovation is enabling us as human beings to be better. So if we look at innovation and how we progressed as humans, we were walking quickly got replaced by horses, and horses got replaced by driving. So the technology itself is not what is bad. It's how we are going to be able to adapt and use the technology as human beings to enable us and in what we wanted to do. And also what that talks to is there's really higher order thinking. There's lots of menial, lower order tasks work that we have within our jobs. But if we're able to harness the power of AI, we're able to at least start focusing more on that higher order thinking and release us to really realize our full potential in that area, in that space. So it is an enabler, and it'll still, because it still needs instructions from human beings in order to carry out whatever complex and great things that AI is doing today, is still an enabler to us as human beings. And then to you as students of various experience on this webinar today, whether you're in your PhD and about to enter or already been in a work environment, or a second-year student. Talent, not tech, is going to fuel and drive the use of AI. So you are the talent that enables all these amazing things that can be done within your industry. And that's really what we need to harness, the humanness of us and what we bring into this environment, into this era of AI. Just moving quickly on. So what are the skills? What are some of the skills that we will need in this era of AI? Well, there's evolving role of supply chain professionals, and the previous speaker already touched on those as well. Probably needing to balance a lot more of the technical and soft skills and doing a bit of an assessment for yourself, a skill set wheel. I know that the one of the speakers last week did an exercise on helping you find out what is it that you are good at? What are you able to do that's unique to you? And so in the same era of AI, being able to see, okay, what are the areas that I need to improve and use something similar to my best attempt of a skill set wheel, where we have communication and collaboration as any way that we need in our professional lives. But one of the new areas of skill sets that's coming up as technical skills is prompt engineering, where you are now able to actually influence, craft effective inputs for large language models that are used within your organization or within your specific industry. And you can actually learn to be a prompt engineer, and the prompts that we generally use in our normal day-to-day ChatGPT can be something that you can create. And then some of the starting points. Sorry, just going back in terms of some of these other areas. So yes, there's the normal analytics and strategic thinking. I think the creativity and innovation, again, talks to that humanness. The element that separates us from machines is still our ability for cognitive thinking, humanness, like empathy, like making judgment calls. When we have technology telling us this, we are still able to make that judgment call, and that's quite an important and will continue to be an important skill that's required within our organizations, within our society as we go forward. So that element of communication, creativity, and the thinking that we have remains a critical skill going forward. So some of the starting points, just to suggest where we could develop these skills. So engage in continuous learning. So being in a mini master like this, like I said earlier at the start, well done for investing in yourself. Continue to be part of these kind of continuous learning opportunities. Leveraging online resources. We at Microsoft, together with Coursera, you'll find many courses. Microsoft Learn actually has persona-based courses. So if you are an individual who wants to focus maybe in the finance element, you want to focus in the analytic element of AI, there are courses that are able to break down your learning path for you, specific to where you want to take your skills in the AI field. Collaborating with cross-functional teams. Always good to be involved in teams that not just look the same or do the same thing. Work with the IT guys, work with the guys in projects, work with the people who are doing field work, various stakeholders. That also just improves your understanding and the broader applications of AI. Industry conferences and webinars, again, and then being able to actually start implementing some AI projects yourself, whether it's your little model that you're using for solving a problem in demand forecasting. That in itself enables you to actually start improving and getting comfortable and confident in applying this technology in your day-to-day lives. And just to end off, this is one of my mantras, excuse quoting myself, but I really profoundly believe that technology is one of the great levelers and enablers. And my why of being here in Microsoft and my why of the previous engagements I've had in different organizations is really that realizing the promise of technology as the enabler for business, but that democratizes economic activity and thereby creating inclusive and thriving communities. And I think we see that now with how ChatGPT has really democratized this technology. And in using the technology, this is how this technology has interpreted my quote and my why for being in the tech. And with that, I hand over to Q&A. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Tony, for the insightful presentation, and thank you as well, Alvin. And now we have come to the session where you can raise your hands, or I think we will answer the ones on the chat once the ones that wants to ask personally have done so. So if you have a burning question, you can raise your hand, and for both speakers, then they'll be able to address your questions. I open the floor now. The first one is JK. Go ahead, JK, and ask your question.
It's JK having stage fright on us now.
You can just unmute yourself, JK, and start talking. Okay, JK, if you cannot speak, you can also write on the chat. Oh, okay, somebody's saying people are unmute. Let me see if I can unmute the people. Just one moment.
Sorry, if I could just come in, JK. I have enabled your mic, so you can just unmute yourself. Please check if you can do it now.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, my name is Joelle. K is for my surname, and I am a second year supply chain operations management student. Because we are nearing the end of the year and next year is the final year. I've had the opportunity to work in prompt engineering, but I've sort of been trying to figure out how I can merge that with supply chain. So it's been great that that was touched on today by the speakers, which I really appreciate. I am wondering though, moving into the third year, because the third and the final year is usually the best time to start building the career. What would either of our speakers today advise I do in terms of getting a foot in the door into the supply chain and operations management space that is integrated with AI and the use of AI?
I'll go first on that one. Thanks so much for that very insightful question. I think where we are today, you don't really need to ask permission in your field. I think being able to find a problem that is in the operations area, you've already started prompt engineering, solving that problem, showing a body of evidence, and being able to then share that with colleagues or prospective employers to say, hey, even in my second year or in my third year, here are some of the things that I'm seeing in our industry. Here's some areas where we can improve, or some efficiencies, or even a novel way of doing things. And in that way, showing that you are a problem solver, that you can just get things done, really helps to stand you out, in the crowd. And obviously all the other, career advice from your professors here applies. But I think in my field, what I'm seeing a lot more is that the practical use and application in everyday environments is really what enables you to get your foot in the door.
Thank you so much.
Okay, any more other questions?
Mr. Lamini, there's one
Yes.
question that was unanswered in the chat, and I know it was slightly touched with the previous speaker. One of the students asked, with the high unemployment rate in South Africa, will AI not further displace people without access to AI tools? And I know that's a reality that some of our students don't have access. How can they overcome that?
Okay, I don't know each of the two speakers who is brave enough to take that question.
I will try. Thanks, Winnie. I will try. Yeah. Look, I think firstly, it's a valuable question because I can relate, flashback 22 years when I was in between, finishing an internship and not having a job. And the challenge at that time was getting a job. It wasn't about AI, was not even a concept. I think in today's world, there's something that Mr. Mthethwa alluded to that I'm gonna maybe harp on, is that there's a lot of problems facing South Africa today where some of the things we need are very basic, but they're out of reach. For example, solutions that we can find for our local communities, um, solutions that we can find just to make people's day life easier. Some people have done it tremendously well. Like creating a value and supply chain for recycling. I would say that firstly, in terms of development, and for someone who's been working for global companies in South Africa, although the advent of AI has taken the world by storm, we in South Africa are significantly behind. So right now, what is needed is, do not take that because this conversation we're having today is necessarily about AI, that AI is is at a stage when people who are unemployed are not going to have jobs. In South Africa, we have certain dynamics that are different. Communication, people speak in various language. We have demographics, people displaced in different places. So I would rather say that before letting AI become a deterrent to worrying about whether it will replace your career, think of how the education and exposure you've had already by the studies and academics that you have can find solutions, basic solutions. When you develop a basic solution and it sells or it works, then you can move that into a technology or a long-term solution. And we as humans, we developed AI. AI didn't develop itself. So never think of it becoming, to the Terminator, rise of the machines. We are far from that, and we need to basically solve basic solutions. So something that I do personally is volunteer. I volunteer in very basic causes. And when I enter that cause, I try and see how can I use this as my guinea pig to solve a solution. And simple thing like providing buckets for people in rural areas, using the experience I have in packaging to go to packaging providers like Nampak and say, can you help, in this? And, I think we need to be enablers. So don't let AI blind you in thinking already that you're not going to have a job because technology is taking over. We have a lot of opportunity, and we are very innovative as South Africans. I hope that can help some of the answer.
Yeah,
Maybe
and
not.
I'll just add to that just some practical examples as well. You're so spot on there. I think, as I said earlier, that we are the ones problem solving. And here in KwaZulu-Natal, where I am based, we've had all these recent weather phenomena. And one of the practical ways that we are applying technology for both the human good, but also in terms of some former exposure to high school students, is just in the area of weather stations. So with providing data in terms of Wi-Fi via satellite in the most rural communities, they're able to then set up a weather station where they're able to report and say, okay, over the time, this is what the data from a weather service has said. But in our local area, as and when the weather is changing, they're able to add to that and input data in there. And what that does, it makes them aware of weather phenomenon that they wouldn't normally have been aware of, and they have access to that data also feeding back and forth from the bigger weather stations. So already within that, then AI is applied to start predicting the different weather forms localized to that area. And that exposure to AI is opening up their minds as high school students. Okay, what else can I use this technology to do to help make my life and our life easier here in this community? So that's just one example which already is enabling people to have access to these technologies from a very young age, and then be able to further develop using those technologies and applying them in other spaces.
Thank you very much, Tony. I think that's making the lives of people that are panicking to feel much better. I'll allow the last two questions. That's from UR and BS. Those would be the last questions. And then we have to close.
Thank you so much. First of all, I just wanted to say thank you to the speakers and all the organizers, as well as a question that I do have is, as a second year student, how proactive can we be to try and make ourselves a bit more enticing in the job market? What specifically should we be looking for to try and get our foot through the door when we finish in a year or two times? What skills set us apart? What outlooks? What would you, as a senior position, would you like to see in somebody who's trying to get into a job, trying to hold it, trying to grow in whatever position they may be, especially for the rest of their career?
Good question. Any of the speakers would like to help the student?
I don't know if you were listening earlier. I did answer a similar question to the previous question was asked around that as well, in terms of how to put my best foot forward. I think it was JK. I don't know if you want to add on to that, Alvin. I don't know if there's anything else.
Yeah, I think it's an excellent question. And yes, I agree, Tony. You did answer, I would say, a big portion of it. I would say that, what we look at so I have the liberty of working with many graduates, and most of them are are looking more innovative than I am, and more bright. And I think what sets apart is, gone are the days when we want to see that on your CV that all you've done is join and support the SPCA or some cause. What we want to see is people who actually have tried to do something meaningful while they have been a student. So when I say meaningful is, create a solution, for their community. Show us a project that you worked for with the university that was not just for academic marks or for academic purposes. So those are kind of things. And I give you the example. We were in a space when we had data scientists that we were recruiting for a graduate program. And one of the ladies that came through said that, she had created an e-learning type of solution for other supply chain students that were more junior to her in the time that, she was looking out for a job. So those are things that we want to see and things that we can verify. So, we understand that a student cannot come with 20 years experience, and this is going to be their entry. So I would say, think about, and don't think about it necessarily as a selling or marketing point. Think of, if you start doing these kind of philanthropic things early on, these become part of your DNA, and then you actually give back to future students. So I would say that, dig into yourself and see how you can develop innovation that makes other people's life easy, and more so if it's something that can enhance supply chain or the growth of supply chain even better. I hope that helps direct you in some way. Yeah.
Thank you very much. It does help a little bit, but as an add-on, Prof. Silius is asking that you are giving a good presentation, and you had a quote about whether AI will replace people and should be an eye-opener to our students. Would you please explain to students the dangers of relying on AI to complete assessments without gaining in-depth understanding in the field of the study?
Thank you, thank you. I suppose that would definitely come up with in the education field. So instructions, like I said, the technology of AI has been built, it's been around for 50, 60 odd years, it's not new, but generative AI, which has democratized AI and enabled it to be at the fingertips of students to query, that is still basically enabling you to do your research quicker, but you still need to read that research and you need to apply your mind to that research. So getting all the data would take you weeks of research and time, but you still need to then read and apply your mind to that data. So the dangers there lie in, number one, just not being able to think, being lazy. And this is also what, Trevor Noah was referring to in his interview, that we still need to remain curious and ask the question around the instructions that we're putting into a machine around actually what work would I want to do? What work would I want to do or need to do in the future? And that then takes you down a question of being able to ask 7 whys before you actually come to an answer. So that ability to think, that human cognitive skill still remains valuable. And you then dull that skill when we're just taking and plagiarizing basically other people's information and passing that as your own. So definitely is not something that you would not only recommend, but just for yourself, still applying your mind to any of the information. We even at Microsoft with Copilot always say, find if you have teams, anything generated by AI needs to be checked, that when you've had meeting minutes generated by AI, you also need to just check that this is actually a true reflection of what has happened. So similarly, in terms of students, as you're researching and using AI, doing your homework and checking. I hope that answers the question.
Very good indeed. AI alone cannot do it. I like there's somebody that put it on the chat that's like you are driving a car. The car with its all complexities cannot move to the direction you want it to go if you don't use your cognitive abilities. So our students mustn't look at us as if we are just nasty in saying they cannot just take information from AI and use it as raw as it is. Colleagues, unfortunately, we're looking at the time. We only left with 1 minute. So for those who couldn't answer the question, ask the questions, we ask you to put them in the chat and our speakers will address them as just before they go or if they ever visit the site again, because it will be on the YouTube as well and many other platforms. That being said, I'm going to wrap the session now. We are really thankful for you to attend this session, and we extend our heartfelt gratitude to our presenters for their engaging and insightful contributions to all participants for joining us. We hope everybody found the session captivating as we all did. And thank you to my colleagues who assisted in making this event a successful. We are looking forward to heading another series from next year. So look at your calendars. Our next MiniMaster Class will take place next year and we'll communicate the dates of the registration once the registration is finalized. Until then, keep balancing that tech and talent and remember that the future of supply chain is in your hand. And the nice important thing about the session is that you are going to receive a certificate of attendance. Thank you very much to our speakers. A special gratitude to Tony and Alvin, our advisory board member, and as well as Claire, our co-host. If you want to get more information about SAPIS, please call her and or use the chat box. She will definitely answer those questions. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming to this session. We really appreciate you all. Have a lovely day further.
Thank you, everyone. Cheers now.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.